All right, good afternoon. We are here again with Grandma Tanner, and today we are going to make apple walnut brownies. There's our recipe because I don't think it got posted. So go ahead, Grandma.
Well, I chose this recipe because it has these walnuts and apples, and I want to feature our little apple peeler. First of all, the recipe says to melt your chocolate and butter. It's a half a cup. And you can put it in a double boiler, but I just put it on very low heat and did it very slowly, and it's melted. So I set that aside. And now I'm going to, this is a cute little chopper. It chops and it grinds. I love it for nuts and onions. Sometimes if you don't want the kids to know that you have all those onions in a recipe, you just chop them up in here real fine and they'll never know the difference. So it makes a little bit of noise here, but it chops them up very, just give it a little shoot. And my other recipe that I made, I used English walnuts. And these are black walnuts.
So tell us what the difference is between a black walnut and an English walnut.
Well, the black walnuts are much stronger flavor than the English walnut. And the hull to the black walnut is a lot harder than an English walnut. And you do not find too many people that want to crack these black walnuts. My father-in-law, John Tanner, that's what his winter job was a lot of times. He made, even when he went to the nursing home, he cracked walnuts. But you don't find too many people doing that. That really fluffed up. Made a little bit more, but I'll just pack it down because the recipe calls for 1 cup of walnuts. So first of all, you beat your eggs. I'll get them beat. These are my little pullet eggs. The recipe calls for 2 eggs, but since they're so small, I'm going to use 3 eggs. Our chickens are all been gone now. They've been given away to some of our employees, took some. So we have no more chickens there. So I did save a couple dozen eggs. So you beat these eggs until they are lemon colored. But first of all, before I beat these eggs, I'm going to show you this little apple peeler. We use these in the bakery. We do sell them. If you are making apple pie, apple strudel, any kind of apple cake or anything, and you need apples peeled, this is the best little gadget. And it's got this suction cup. So on a smooth surface, it'll be real sturdy. Now this apple here is a Braeburn. The only trick to these is you have to have a firm apple. And this little, it's a slicer and peeler and core all in one. So see how quick that is? It's peeled, sliced, and cored. Now I usually take off this little end here. This recipe calls for 1.5 cups of chopped and peeled apples. So you put this in here and you just make little tiny slices. And see how it already, then if you want smaller slices, you can just cut that again. But it really works well. And if you're doing a pie or anything with larger slices, you just cut them a little bit bigger. See, they're just nice little pieces. Now you can chop them up just a little bit more if you want some smaller pieces in your bread or whatever. We use this little gadget in the bakery for all those nice slices of apples that they put in your sandwiches. So it works out very well. I think this will make about, we'll need about a cup and a, or 1.5 apples to get a cup and a half. So you just keep slicing and dicing and little pieces. Put a few in there to see how many we have.
That might do it with just one apple. Well, not quite.
I like to pack them down just a little bit. So we'll push them down. And then you just pull this core off of there. It's a little tough. Pull it back. Anchor on your suction. Put another apple in there. Now this one is a Gold Rush, and they just picked them, and so they are fairly firm. It's a very good keeping apple and a very good cooking apple, this Gold Rush. They're fairly new for us, the Gold Rush apple. It's a late variety of Golden Delicious. And they're a little bit on the tart side, so that's why they're very good for baking. This is great for baking a pie or see what I'm doing here.
Now, could you have your apples chopped ahead if you put them in lemon juice or something to keep them from browning?
Yes, you can have that all done ahead of time. Okay, I think this is going to be about enough. A few little seeds in there, you don't want them in there. I like to just press them down so I be sure to get about 1.5 cups. That's about 1.5 cups. So see how thin this peel is? There's not much left to it. So we got that all done. Now I'm going to beat these eggs until they are lemon colored. And this is the chocolate that I used. You buy that as a 4-ounce package. then you add your sugar gradually. You can gradually add this while you're beating it. It's really important when you are baking anything and using eggs is to get those eggs whipped up really good. They're fluffy, and it helps with the rising of the cake or bars or whatever you're making. Now you add the flour, and I always buy pre-sifted flour, but it says a half a cup, or I mean a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of baking powder. You always measure it so it's about right level with your spoon. And then I take a fork and you blend that really well. Not so that all the baking powder and the salt are all in one area. So you get that all blended real well. Now you add this chocolate mixture to your eggs and sugar. So I'm gonna pour this in here and beat this all real well. And always be sure to preheat your oven. I turned that oven on before I started so that it would be right up to 350 when you're ready to stick it in the oven. So I'll blend this in here real well. Okay, now you stir in this flour mixture, flour, baking powder, and salt. And again, you gradually add that while you have your beater running. Be sure to scrape the sides of the pan so you get all that flour in there. Blend it in real well. Now you don't want to forget the vanilla. So I'm going to use 1 full cup of black walnuts. I made one the other night and used English walnuts. So these brownies are going to have a lot stronger nut flavor. And then you add the 1.5 cups of apples. So it calls for quite a bit of apples and nuts in there. Now, lastly, I'm going to put a teaspoon of vanilla in there. And this is the vanilla that it's really good, strong, real good vanilla. Then you got to blend that in. So instead of just pouring it in one place, I'm going to kind of scatter it around a little bit. So we got that all blended together. Splattered a few apples here and there. Put this over in the, away from this. And I have a 9x9 little plate here, casserole or baking dish. I like to stir this up real good, make sure it's all, any flour or anything is off of the bottom, and it is. So you just put this in this pan. It is very thick.
So when you mixed in the apples and the walnuts, it is fine to use your mixer versus stirring it with a spatula so your apples and walnuts don't get mushy or chopped up with that mixer.
No, that's fine. Because the apples were plenty big pieces, and if they get chopped up a little bit more, that's okay. I guess I'll just use my finger. You press this in real good. Now I am using a glass plate, and sometimes I have read somewhere that if you do use a glass plate, you can turn your temperature down just a little bit.
So if you didn't want such a thick brownie, could you use a jelly roll pan? Or do you think there wouldn't be enough batter in there?
A jelly roll pan, or just like a 9x13 maybe.
Yeah, that would work.
And my hands were clean. So you just level that off the best you can there.
Beth, you asked what we are making. We are making apple walnut brownies.
So it's all ready to go in the oven, and I like to get, I try not to get too much around the edges here, any kind of dough, because it'll just burn on. So see how thick it is? Put that in the oven, and it takes 35 to 40 minutes. So my oven is set at 350. So I think I'm going to turn it down to 325 or even 340 and see what it's going to look like. I'll put it in there. This is the one that I baked the other night. It rose up pretty good with the baking powder in there and the fluffy eggs. And it's got nice chunks of apples and English walnuts in it. So we'll see how this one tastes, but I think for a nice dessert for the holidays, this would be good. And you could cut a square, put a dab of ice cream on it, and then take some of our caramel sauce. You heat this caramel sauce for 30 seconds, and our bakery manager, she says anything with caramel is good. So drizzle a little bit of that on top of the ice cream. Maybe stick a little orange pumpkin in there for Thanksgiving. It'd just be cute as a button. So that's all for today, and thank you.
All right, so hope everybody comes back next week and watches the next episode of Cooking with Grandma Tanner. And thanks for watching.